Prakriya Pratyabhijna book does anybody have? I have got, but I don't know where is there. Prakriya Pratha, this is the one. Prakriya Pratyabhijna. My book. This introduction, Vedanta Prakriya Nidharana Avashakata, this particular introduction also we could have maybe I'll bring it up. A few things we have to see in the introduction. There are a few things which should not be missed in the introduction. And then he begins with Bhagavad Shankaracharya's Prakriya. Then he brings in all the distorters later on. Panchapadika Ityadi, where they made the mistake. It's a masterpiece. It's going to be, it's depending upon in a kind of students also you get, kind of jignasus, very objective thinking people. Then they would, even now people appreciate it. Slowly they're coming out of the shell, coming out of, they always feel shy of accepting. Because, there's so much, all these hundreds of years, Bhashyakar has been saying only Adhyasa is the problem. Adhyasa does not mean there is a material transformation. Brahman remains unchanged, but there is avidya about it. That avidya means ignorance transforms and becomes an error. That ignorance transforms and becomes an error. Not the error is a direct, distorted perception about the fact. There is a material thing called ignorance, which is again imposed on the truth. That ignorance transforms and becomes the error. That means, like rope ignorance transforms and becomes the snake. Not rope, snake is a distorted perception about the rope. It's a pratiti, it is a anyatha grahanam of the vastu. Bhashyakar is telling it is anyatha grahanam. Very little parinama. Because, people, a lot of people, what happens is, become sluggish. But those who are very serious about it, they do have problems. If you accept parinama, because whenever there is a parinama, then it ceases to be adhyas. Whether it is something changes, whether the matter changes and becomes something else, or ignorance changes and becomes something else, or Brahman changes and becomes something else. then it ceases to be adhyasa. It becomes parinama. And it becomes parinama. You see? What is the use? You say Brahman doesn't change, only ignorance changes and becomes the world. Okay. I also can say Brahman doesn't change, only milk changes. Milk changes and becomes the curd. I also say Brahman remains the same. The milk changes and becomes the changeable changes. The unchangeable doesn't change. Now what are you conveying? What are you unfolding? The changeable changes, the unchangeable doesn't change. Is no unfoldment. It's not a great revelation. The changeable has changed. The unchangeable has not changed. Is no unfoldment. They say the unchangeable has not changed and remaining changeless is taken. All the changeful has taken in the world. If you say the changeable ignorance has become the world, there is no unfoldment. The changeable ignorance has changed and become the world. It is logical, all right, because you are fitting into the books of logic. I mean, what does the logic say? Only what is parinama, matter can change. So creation has to presuppose change. That is what the Nayayikas say. Now we are supposed to explain away the creation without involving change. Now the Nayayikas do not accept. Now in order to convince them, we say, well, the Maya, that is the ignorance, after all, is what changes. Brahman remains changeless. Therefore, Brahman is the truth behind ignorance. Ignorance changes and becomes the world. Therefore, paramparaya, the immediate cause of the world is ignorance, and the final cause is the Brahman. Therefore, we can make a jump. Brahman is the ultimate karanam of everything. As a Brahman is ultimate karanam is not what is said. Brahman is the karanam for Jagat. I say everything has to be ignorance. Then supposing we say, if everything is born of ignorance, then the material for the world is ignorance. Therefore, ignorance becomes the Srishti Karanam, Sthiti Karanam, Laya Karanam. Brahman cannot be Srishti, Sthiti, Laya Karanam. Because in Brahman there is no Srishti. In Brahman there is no Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. In Brahman there is something called ignorance. The background to the ignorance is Brahman. And Brahman is the source support and end of the world. Therefore, ignorance becomes the Srishti, Sthiti, Laya Sthanam. Now, Bhrigu cannot be told, by his father, Yatova imani bhutani jayante ena jatani jivanti. This is all born in Brahma. And itself doesn't change. Which means what? Adhyasa. How do you explain the Shastram without really bringing in Adhyasa, without defining Adhyasa, without involving any Parinama? You see? Therefore, when we talk about really, there is no Parinama Karanam. There is only one Karanam, which is the Adhishtanam. And then ignorance does not mean Bhavarupam. It is not something that is a material thing which undergoes change and becomes the world. But it is only the truth ununderstood becomes misunderstood. Not ignorance becomes. There is no ignorance of a thing. There is only a truth ununderstood. Becomes misunderstood. Rather than ignorance of the truth, which is a material thing, transforms and becomes the error. Ignorance doesn't become the error. The vastu, the truth ununderstood becomes misunderstood. So when we advance this, then because, for age-old habit, for years, after Shankaracharya, somebody came and started, and everybody thinks that cannot be accepted. We don't accept Mula Vidya. I say we don't accept Mula Vidya, but we accept Avidya. Then what is the difference between Mula Vidya and Avidya? They have a word Mula Vidya. Mula Vidya means the Parinama Karanam. That which transforms, that is called Mula Vidya. So the ignorance that transforms is called Mula Vidya. And when it transforms and becomes something, that is called Tula Vidya. That is called Tula Vidya. Rajju Ajnanam is Mula Vidya. And Sarpa is Tula Vidya. Mula is what? The cause, the causal ignorance. And the Tula means what? the effect ignorance. The ignorance in the form of the effect. The ignorance in the form of the cause. Actually, we bring in and say cause and effect thing is different. Where ignorance and error is there, there is no cause and effect relation. We differentiate. We differentiate between karya karana bhava and avidya. Now you are bringing in the real causation within ignorance and error. The ignorance is the mula vidya, the error is the tula vidya. Then they say, how do you know avidya? Through the tula, we infer the mula. Okay, to infer the tula vidya through mula vidya, what are the grounds? Unless you have another mula tula. So, in the memory, keeping in memory of the other mula tula, you can infer this tula also should have mula. Here, if you have, at least if you take the example, if I have the experience of rope ignorance transforming and becoming the snake in Drishtanta, then I can say maybe this world also is a transformation of the Brahma avidya, ignorance. But in no instant, when I see the rope as snake, I don't perceive rope ignorance transforming and becoming the snake. I see the snake as direct perception about the rope. It is my judgment of the rope. It is pratitihi. Similarly, Shuktika Rajatam, there is no example which tells me that ignorance transforms and becomes the error, becomes the creation. And therefore, I can't give an example also for it. And therefore, how can you make an inference? For inference, you require Drishtantam also. And therefore, it's a very serious matter. The greatest blunder in Vedanta Sampradayam that has taken place is creating causation between ignorance and error. I mean, it's parinama, transformation between ignorance and error. The greatest blunder. Greatest blunder. Blunder means stupid. The very greatness, the grandeur of Vedanta becomes gone. They say the universe is Brahman perceived this manner. Then alone there is Mukhya Gauna Ekatvam. Supposing this whole thing is really only the avidya thing, ignorance transformation, then how can ignorance in its purest form would be Mukhya Ekatvam? I as an individual is the result of ignorance. Jagat is the result of ignorance. So between me the individual and the Jagat, there is Gauna Ekatvam, and their Mukhya Ekatvam has to be the purest form of ignorance of Brahman. Two errors about the same fact can have Mukhya Ekatvam as the fact. Two related errors, me as an individual and the Jagat. And they are related. And their root it happens to be Brahman, and Brahman is the Mukhya Ekatvam. And then we say that Brahman ununderstood looks Gauna Ekatvam. That is called ignorance. There is no ignorance. There is truth ununderstood, truth misunderstood. Don't put the language like this, ignorance of Brahman. There is no ignorance of Brahman. There is Brahman. What is within experience is Brahman ununderstood. You can't take ignorance as another thing. What is experienced is fact ununderstood, fact misunderstood. Not separate from the fact as something called ignorance of the fact. This is the problem. And this we can't even talk anywhere. Then they will say, oh, you don't accept Mula Vidya. It's like Muslims saying, no, you don't accept Allah, Muhammad. But I accept God. No, you may accept God, but if you don't accept Muhammad, then you are out. You see? That's why similarly here also we accept Advaitam. No, you may accept Advaitam, but you are not accepting Mula Vidya. Therefore you are out. What is the difference between a Mula and a Mula Vidyavadi? What is the difference? See, I am accepting Advaitam as the truth. No, you may accept Advaitam, but you have to accept Mula Vidya as the Parinama Karanam for the Jagat. I am telling you, in this world, most of the human beings are mullahs only. That is the truth. They are all mullahs. Leaving out Vedanta Sampradayam, everything is a mullah. Vaidika Sampradayam, properly understood, followed, is not a mullah. All other. Some anugraham, somebody, in fact, even before this person came, this Bangalore, Swamiji came, the great scholar, not an ordinary person. Even Shankaracharyas would go and pay their respects. As a person, they would pay their respects to him. Even Kanchi Kamaguda, they would go and pay their respects. They had something. This is something he has done in this. Even though they didn't agree with him on the basis of Mula Vidya, but they would appreciate that here is a person who did good work. Vibhuti hai. Now, this person, before he came, there were other acharyas who did question Mula Vidya in our sampradaya, but were not sustained. They came and questioned, what is this that we are introducing Mula Vidya in the Prakriya stuff? It is only Avidya, Agrahana, Anyadhagrana, Samshayagrahana Rupas, that is Bhashikara. What is this Mula Vidya? From where did it come? You can go on tracing it to Panchapadika. Panchapadika is also not written by really Bhashikara's own student. That's not, it's unbelievable. Somebody who came, some pada, Padmapada, this pada is because there can be many Padmapadas also. I can't believe that really Shankaracharya's own disciple really misunderstood him in such a drastic manner. It's very difficult. Somebody who came after him immediately, and he wrote, then he put there Mula Vidya. It's all because you want to really, silence the Nayayikas. I mean, silence by way of agreeing with them. You silence a person by saying, okay. That's absolutely unacceptable, you see. Karikana Bhavaku, you have to explain away the whole universe as an error about the truth, not as a modification of something. They say this is all ignorance because it's the result of ignorance. And this is called Nyaya. This is called Nyaya. This is all result of ignorance. This is all ignorance because it's the result of ignorance. We say it is all ignorance, meaning because it is Brahman, misunderstood. It is not the effect of ignorance. It is the perception about Brahman due to ignorance. You don't look upon ignorance as another thing, There can be ignorance about a fact, not ignorance as another substance. You have ignorance about a substance. Not ignorance is another substance. It's only agrahanam. It's a vastu agrahanam. This is the whole thing. Introduction, I think. And he has made it clear all this in Mula Vidya Nirasa. He has written a book, another masterpiece, Mula Vidya Nirasa. There is nothing but Mula Vidya Nirasa. We saw that book also here few years ago. Mula Vidya Nirasa. Nirasa means, rejection, refuting. Mula Vidya ko, just to show how there is no such a thing called Mula Vidya. There is Avidya. There is Avidya about Brahman. And Avidya about Brahman means Brahman alone is, nothing else is. But there is no Karikana Bhava between Mula Vidya and Jagat. That is called Mula Vidya Nirasa. Oh Rama.
Somewhere I read, when we talk about Avidya, then it brings to mind, Avidya relating to a particular individual mind. Whereas the individual mind itself is itself Avidya. So to differentiate between that kind of avidya and primordial or whatever, that kind of language, then it is called Mula Vidya. Some such explanation.
No. Mula Vidya, you can. Individual mind is an error.
Yes, that itself is an error.
Individual mind, avidya is something that is in the form of pratyaya and independent of the except as pratyaya, there is no avidya. Therefore, it is pratyaya itself is avidya. That I am an individual is avidya. Is an error. Is an error about the non-individual ununderstood. The non-individual ununderstood looks as an individual. Therefore, it is avidya about the Brahmavastu, and it is Ashraya also is Brahman. It is there in Brahman about Brahman. There is avidya about Brahman. I mean, if you say where is it and all that, otherwise there is no avidya, neither for the individual nor for the Brahman. Because if everything is the adhyasa and adhyasa is adhishthanam, then there is nobody. But if you want to, as a prakriya, if you say who has got avidya, say whoever thinks I am ignorant, he has got avidya. I can't make a statement jiva has avidya. That as a statement of fact. Because jivatva himself is avidya. I can't say as a statement of fact Brahman has avidya. Because Brahman is free from avidya. And therefore, who has got avidya is a wrong question. Say what is the subject matter of avidya. Not what is avidya. What is avidya? Kim Brahma can be a valid question. Not what is avidya. The problem is, Mula Vidya, they say, whatever they may say, they may talk about Mula Vidya in any terms is all acceptable, as long as you don't look upon it as a material thing transforming and becoming the world. Now, in Srishti Prakriya, what happens? We look upon the Avyakrita Nama Rupa, which are themselves Aropita. The Avyakrita Nama Rupa, the unmanifest names and forms, which are inseparable from Parameshwara, the Jagat Karanam, as a subject to become manifest, are called Maya. It is that Avyakrita Nama Rupa, have Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. Where from did the name and form come? Aropita. They are Kalpita in Brahma. Meaning what? They are perceived and inferred. As perceived it is called the Vyakritam. As inferred it is called the Avyakritam. So the Nama Rupa is what have got, it is the Nama Rupa which have got the Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas. So Avyakrita Nama Rupas have got Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas. When they become manifest also, Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas. All the Nama Rupas have got Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas. Okay. Now these Nama Rupas which have got Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunas, where from did they come? They say they are adhyastha in Brahma. That means Brahman ununderstood is seen as Nama Rupa. And why they are imposed? Due to ignorance. The non-understanding about Brahma makes it seen as Nama Rupa. Therefore, the reason for the Nama Rupas is Nama Rupas are adhyastha, and the reason is agrahanam, ajnanam, ignorance. That ignorance doesn't have sattva rajas tamo gunas. Whereas the Mula Vidyavadis see no difference between Maya, the Avyakrita Nama Rupa, that Avyakritam, the Maya, and ignorance, they see no difference. For them, the Maya and Avidya are one and the same. This is the problem. Whereas we talk about, Bhashyakara refers to Avyakrita Nama Rupa as presupposing as there behind as Vyakrita Nama Rupa in the Srishti Prakriya. We trace, when we talk about the Srishti, what is this Srishti? Avyakrita Nama Rupa is made Vyakritam. That is called Srishti. Now the question is, Avyakrita Nama Rupa kahan se aaya? Avyakrita Nama Rupa kahan se aaya? Aise Anadhyadhyastau. They are Anadhyadhyastha, they are the errors in the truth. They are errors in the truth. We are not really talking about how does the error begin. To correct the error, we are beginning a prakriya as to how does the creation begin. The creation begins from the unmanifest. The manifest becomes the unmanifest and the unmanifest becomes manifest. What is the manifest? Nama-rupa. What is unmanifest? Nama-rupa. That Nama-rupa, from where did it come? They are adhyastha in the anadhyadhyastha in Brahma. That means the Brahman is seen as Nama-rupa. Why Brahman is seen as Nama-rupa? Because of agrahanam, avidya. That avidya doesn't have. Therefore, the Avyakrita Nama-rupa Maya figures in Prakriya. Avidya is the problem. Avidya is the problem. Maya is the Prakriya. Maya is the Prakriya. What is Maya? Avyakrita Nama-rupa. Avyakrita Nama. Adhyastha Nama-rupa is called Maya. It is Adhyastha Nama-rupa. Why they are Adhyastha? Due to ignorance. That ignorance doesn't have. Therefore, that doesn't have Sattva Rajas Tamo gunas. Therefore, this very Adhyastha Nama-rupa, treated as a creation, is called Maya Srishti, and Adhyastha Nama-rupa is called Maya in Srishti Prakriya. This very error is treated as Maya. This very error is looked upon as Maya. The Avyakrita error is looked upon as Maya in Srishti Prakriya. So Maya, why this Maya is introduced, this Srishti Prakriya is introduced to correct that error. To correct that error. Whereas they say this very Avyakrita Nama-rupa is called Mula Vidya. This Avyakrita Nama-rupa is the Mula Vidya. This Avyakrita Nama-rupa changed to become Vyakrita Nama-rupa. So the Vyakrita Nama-rupa is what is called Thula Vidya. Avyakrita Nama-rupa is called the Mula Vidya. And that Avyakrita Nama-rupa is otherwise called Mula Avidya. And that manifests to become the Jagat. The Avyakrita manifests. Avyakrita becomes manifest. Itself they call it as the Avidya transforms to become the world. Now, my question is, Mula Vidya doesn't transform. The Avyakritam doesn't transform, become the Vyakritam. The Avyakritam becomes the Vyakritam, doesn't have to transform. My question is, Avyakrita Nama-rupa kaya kahan se? Avyakrita Nama-rupa kaya kahan se? Is it really Satyam or Adhyastam? You have to say it is Adhyastha. Adhyastha means what? Adhisthana, Ajnana means non-recognition of the Vastu and brings about the Avyakrita, the Nama-rupa. That same Nama-rupa, when it is Avyakritam, we call it as Avyakrita Nama-rupa. Therefore, it comes under the realm of the Adhyastha. So they are creating the so-called causation between Avyakrita. You can't say whatever is the relation between Avyakritam and Vyakritam is the relation between the Mula Vidya and Thula Vidya. This is Thula Vidya and that is Avyakrita is the Thula Vidya and Avyakrita Nama-rupa is Mula Vidya. That is being too simplistic. I have to establish that this is an error first. This Mula Vidya, this Avyakrita Nama-rupa, is it a fact and an error? The Avyakrita Nama-rupa, is it a fact and an error? Is it a visheshanam of the truth? If you say it is an error, then it is an error about the Brahman. If it is an error about the Brahman, then whatever makes it an error, the non-recognition, agrahanam about the truth as the truth alone bring about an error. At that level there is no parinama. Therefore, the avyakrita nama rupa, between the avyakrita nama rupa and the truth, there is no parinama. Between the vyakrita nama rupa and the truth, there is no parinama. Now, between the vyakrita and avyakrita nama rupa, if you say parinama, that also we are not going to accept. Why? Because there is no parinama between vyakriti and avyakriti. जैसे है अव्याकृत में वैसे ही दर्शन में आता है. जैसे है वैसे दर्शन में आता है. For this also Bhagavan gives the example of when the night falls, things don't appear, but things don't change. Things don't appear, but things don't change also. And when the day falls, then the same thing that appeared avyakritam becomes vyakritam, जिसमें कोई परिणाम नहीं है. In Mandukya we saw this. Mandukya Bhashya. Yatra supto naganjana gamam gamayate naganjana swapnam pashyati tat sushuptam. While writing Bhashyam for that particular verse, Ashigara talks about this. Able to follow. Therefore, there is no such a thing. You can't read transformation between Vyakriti and Avyakriti, nor can you read transformation between Vyakrita Namarupa and the Brahman. And Avyakrita Namarupa and Brahman. When we are talking about Avidya, what we mean is Avyakrita Namarupa and Vyakrita Namarupa being an error about Brahman. That is Avidya, that is Anadya Vidya. And Anadi Avidya means here the Brahman ununderstood is appearing as Vyakrita Namarupa and Avyakrita Namarupa. Where is the parinama here? Kahin bhi koi parinam to aaye. Now if you look upon the Avyakrita Namarupa itself as called Maya itself as Avidya, and Avidya becomes ऐसे Avyakrita Nama, see what they say, Avyakrita Nama Rupa transforms and becomes Vyakrita Nama Rupa, which itself is a blunder. Avyakrita Nama Rupa transforms and becomes Vyakrita Nama Rupa. Okay, let us accept the parinama. Avyakrita Nama Rupa transforms and becomes the Vyakrita Nama Rupa. Okay, then my question is, how did it come about? How did it come about? Then they say, it did not come about, it is Anadi. I say it may not have come about in time. That is a different thing. No, it is Anadi era. If you say it is Avyakrita Namarupa itself is an error, if Avyakrita Namarupa is an error about Brahman, then just as this error, Vyakrita Namarupa is a transformation of another Vyakrita Namarupa, then that another Vyakrita Namarupa also, as an Adhyastha, must have a Parinama behind. If this Vyakrita Namarupa presupposes Parinama, then Avyakrita Namarupa to come about, for it to come about, there has to be Parinama. If you say, no, Avyakrita Namarupa is a direct error about Brahman, in which case, why don't you accept this as a direct error of Brahman? Whether it is Anadi Adhyasa, and another blunder they make is, Anadi Adhyasa, Mula Vidya is Anadi Adhyasta. It is also an error about the truth. Mula Vidya is an error about the truth, is imposed upon the Brahman. And that Mula Vidya transforms and becomes the world through Parinama. Okay. Mula Vidya transforms and becomes the world. But Mula Vidya is itself an error. Now, if the world, the manifest, if presupposes a transformation, then the Anadi, that what we call the Avyakrita Namarupa also should presuppose transformation. And for this the answer they give is, this is Sadi Avidya. This Jagat is Sadi Avidya. And that is Anadi. This Sadi Avidya presupposes a transformation of the Anadya Vidya. But Anadya Vidya doesn't presuppose a transformation. Why? Because it is Anadya Vidya. Whereas Bhashyakara is giving the Sadi Avidya as a Drishtanta for Anadi Avidya, saying clearly whether it is Sadi or Anadi, Avidya is Avidya. The nature of Avidya has to be the same. The nature of the Avidya is the same. That is why he gives a comprehensive definition, Atasmin Tat Buddhihi. Mistaking something for something else. Whether it has been there or I make a mistake, whether I take a given object at a given time for something else, or I have been taking for good the truth, whether time itself is in there, whether error is in time or time itself is in error, the error by definition error is Atasmin Tat Buddhi. That applies to both the Sadi Adhyasa and Anadi Adhyasa. Therefore now how can you take a stand that the Anadi Adhyasa doesn't require Parinama? It can be a direct error about the truth. Whereas Sadi Adhyasa is not a direct error about the truth. The Sadi Adhyasa is a result of the transformation on the part of Anadi Adhyasa. I say the very Anadi Adhyasa, what we call the Avyakrita Namarupa, is within the bubbles of Sadi Adhyasa. The inference of name and form is within the realm of perception of the name and form. Therefore, you have to directly trace the perception of the name and form. By tracing the perception of the name and form to the truth, you trace the Avyakrita Namarupa. Without tracing the Vyakritam to the truth, you can't trace the Avyakritam to the truth, because the inference is within the realm of perception. So these problems definitely are there. If you think about it, then definitely Vedanta is beautiful, the Sampradaya is beautiful, the Prakriya is all flawless, and wherever there are kinks that have come about, and one of the biggest kinks that has come about in the tradition is that Mula Vidya, and if you talk about it, then you are an outcast. If you don't talk about it, then you have to leave it to God. But at least one has to understand for oneself what it is all about. Not being just, not in order to be a part of the bigger group. Because a lot of people, don't study first of all. Because our problem is, sadhuunga problem ye hota hai. Because we just, become sadhus and afterwards Shastram is gone. Before you take sannyasa, whatever study you do, only before taking sannyasa. Once you take sannyasa, then your study is over. That is why it is better to take sannyasa a little late. Because once you take sannyasa, it's gone. And then if you have got a mandalam to look after, then where is the time? If you have got a matham to look after, then where is the adhyanam? Then you are a mandali Ishwaraha. You are not that virakta sadhu. That virakta sadhuta is gone. This is the problem to hide. And therefore, that person was a Privrajika. This Acharya was a Privrajika. He was just really living a very simple life, and then he became, something prerana came into his mind, and he said, I must expose this thing, otherwise the students will always be in wilderness. This great, wonderful tradition of tracing everything directly, the whole universe to the truth, the very Siya, this whole thing is being distorted by bringing in between some Parinama and all that headache. Able to follow. I think that's enough. We'll see next class. Tired. We'll not be able to explain now. Next class. Only one more class for completing the Ajsan. Then we'll see. Aptavakya is in relation to a Drishtantam. Aptavakyam, even that is also Aptavakyam. Apta means the person who knows. Vakya means that person's Vakya. A person who sees the rope as rope is called Apta Purusha. I don't see the rope as rope. I see it only as a snake, but he sees the rope as rope, and he also sees that I am seeing it as snake, and he knows there is no snake, but still he accepts the snake that I am seeing, and accepting my snake, he creates a relation between Rajju, Sarpa, Karyakarana Bhava. That person is called Apta Purusha, and whatever he says is called Apta Vakyam. That way even Shruti is Apta Purusha. Shruti is also Apta Purusha. She is Apta Purusha. Apta means, Prapta is Nishtha. Apdhatu, Ta Nishtha. जो प्राप्त है, जिनका प्राप्त है, इसका आपता मीन्स प्राप्त, प्राप्त, आपता, प्राप्त. Yeah, that is all right. Here, in the context of the Drishtanta, Rajju is Pratyaksha Pramana Vishayam. Because there is an error there, and if there is no other way, even when supposing there is no other way of seeing it, he has taken it for granted that it is Sarpa alone, and if he is living with the idea that it is Sarpa alone, then the Pramana is only Apta Vakya. Then he has to rethink. Maybe I am living with the notion that it is Sarpa, maybe it is not Sarpa. That kind of thinking has to be introduced, and that is introduced by only the Apta Vakya. And there the Apta Vakya is, we don't say there Shabda is a Pramanam, because Rajju is a Pratyaksha Vishayam. If Rajju is a Pratyaksha Vishayam, then it is not really Shabda Pramanakam. But yet, here Shabda works. We don't say it is only Shabda Pramanam, it is Pratyaksha Vishayam, but when there is an error, definitely Apta Vakya is required to correct my error. Supposing I take it for granted that it is only a Sarpa, then definitely somebody has to come and tell me. Like Dashamaha. So the 10th man is seeking the 10th man. Somebody has to come and tell me that the 10th man is not away, but the 10th man is yourself in this manner. In that manner, in a limited sense, really, that Aptavakya helps me to understand the Pratyaksham. What is Pratyaksham? But there is Shabda Pramana. Here the Pratyaksha Pramana. Shabda is a Pramanam in the matter of the Pratyaksham. There the Shabda is a Pramanam in the matter of the Swata Siddham. But when we analyze the Shabda Pramanakam, you see, what is Shabda Pramanam? Please understand. What is Shabda Pramanam? While analyzing what is Vastu, how Shabda is a Pramanam, in that context, we give this example. Not that really Rajju is a Shabda Pramanakam. To explain away how Shabda is a Pramana in the matter of understanding the self, well, then we give how this is Pratyaksha Pramanakam and that is not Pratyaksha Pramanakam, and here Shabda is only corrective of the error, as here it is a corrective of, Shabda is corrective of an error about the Pratyaksham. Shabda is corrective of an error about the Pratyaksham. The only difference is this, here it is Pratyaksha, there it is Aparoksha. But if one is living with the idea that it is, even if it is Sadi Adhyasa, Aptavakyam has to come. We have to take it that way. He has no way of, because he is not, he doesn't doubt his notion. He doesn't doubt his notion that the 10th man is away. He doesn't doubt his notion that it is Sarpa. Then what do you do? He has to be made to think that it is not Sarpa. You have to make him doubt. Then who can make him doubt? Not his own perception. That is because he is already having the perception that it is snake, and there is nothing to make him doubt his own perception. Therefore, somebody who sees it as Rajju has to come and make him doubt. And that doubting his own perception begins the reflection and ultimately comes to know what is Pratyaksham, of course. That's why it's called Pramana is Aptavakya. Clear? But we don't say Rajju is Shabda Pramanakam. And that way. If there is an error, then Aptavakya is a pramana. Aptavakya has to be bracketed with the Shabda Pramana. Aptavakyam is a Shabda Pramanam which is corrective of the error about the Pratyaksham. And Shabda is a Pramanam which is corrective of the error about the Aparoksham. So Aptavakyam has to be bracketed with the Shruti. Why? Because it is not descriptive, it is corrective. Anything corrective, it is an example for the corrective. It is not Sarpa. It is Rajju when we say, even when it says it is Rajju, the Tatparya means it is not Sarpa. Because Rajju is within Anubhava. Rajju is Anubhava Siddham. There it is Swata Siddham. Here it is Anubhava Siddham. Anyway, Rajju Anubhava is not born of Vakya. Rajju Anubhava is not born of Vakya. So Vakya is not creating Rajju Anubhava. What is it doing? It is only correcting Sarpa Pratiti. Therefore it is corrective. It is not creating. Aparoksha Anubhuti is not created by Shabda Pramanam. It is only correcting the Jivatvam, Adhyasa about the Vastu. Drishtantam also, this is Nayam Sarpaha Iyam Rajjuhu. Even though we say it, then what is it? It is correctiva, Sarpa Pratiti. Not creativa, Rajju Anubhava. It may be Pratyaksham, this may be Aparoksham, but Shabda is doing is corrective. That's why it has been given the status of Shabda Pramanam, Apta Purusha, Aptava. But that Rajju is a Pratyaksha Vishaya. Here the Vastu here is Swata Siddham. Even after knowing the Rajju, I don't get liberated. Shabda Pramana has given me the job. But even though I get liberated from the Sarpa Bhayam, but that itself is not liberation. That's why it is a Drishtanta Sthani. That is Ashtanta. Hariyom. It will all come in this book. Pratyabhijna mein aayenge. Again? I didn't get it. Aptavakyam is a Drishtantam. Aptavakyam is in the realm of the Drishtanta. Aptavakyam in the context of Drishtantam is a Drishtantam for Shabda Pramana. For Shruti. Just as Shruti is corrective. Shruti is corrective just as Aptavakya is corrective. Like Sarpa is Adhyasa about the Rajju. Jagat is Adhyasa. Jiva is Adhyasta about Brahman. For which Drishtanta is Rajju Sarpa. Jagat Adhyasa in Brahma is like Sarpa Adhyasa in Rajju. There the Shabda Pramana is corrective, Shruti is corrective, that is Dashtantam. Just as Aptavakya is corrective here. No, it is corrective means it is corrective of the Sarpa. Sarpa Pratiti. No, it is not descriptive of the Rajju. Rajju Anubhava is there. There is no, this Apta Purusha, Aptavakyam does not include the description of the Rajju qualities. It may use the word Rajjugu, but it is not descriptive of the Rajju as Rajju. It is only corrective of the Pratiti that it is Sarpa. It is Nayam Sarpaha. I say, Iyam Rajju is Anubhava. Yam Rajju, this is Rajju is what? Anubhava. Then what is the Shabda doing? Nayam Sarpaha. That's all the Praman. Neti Neti. Nayam Sarpaha. Bas. And then what is it? Rajju. Rajju is available for Pratyaksha Praman. But what is Shabda doing? Nayam Sarpaha. This is Sarpa nahi hai. ये सर्प नहीं है बस. देर से शब्द प्रमाण इज ओवर. आप जीव नहीं है. दैट यू आर ब्रह्मन, दैट इज अनुभव सिद्धम. दैट इज नॉट क्रिएटेड बाय शब्द. ब्रह्मत्व अनुभव इज नॉट क्रिएटेड बाय शब्द प्रमाण. जीवत्व अनुभव इज नेगेटेड बाय शब्द प्रमाण. यू आर नॉट जीवा. सिमिलरली दिस इज नॉट सर्पा. This is not sarpa. Is Shabda Praman. That is correct. Description of the Rajju would be required only when you want to, when you have to distinguish the Rajju from the other objects. Oh, you are again mistaken. Aptavakya is only in the realm of the Drishtanta. Is only Apta Purusha does not mean Brahmajnani. यहाँ पर Apta Purusha means जो जानता है. For Rajju को Rajju बतलाने के लिए, in order to come out of Sarpakhya, I don't have to look for a Brahmajnani. The one who knows this Rajju as Rajju, but then he sees me mistaking it, then he comes and teaches me, hey, ये सर्प नहीं है, ये रज्जु है, is अनुवाद of अनुभवा. ये रज्जु है, is अनुवाद of अनुभवा. ये सर्प नहीं है, ये शब्द प्रमाणम. आप जीव नहीं है, इज ओनली शब्द प्रमाण नेति. यू आर ब्रह्मन. वो तो अनुभव है, उसका अनुवाद भी नहीं कर सकते हैं. बिकॉज इवन व्हेन यू से ब्रह्मा, यू आर अनलिमिटेड. इट फ्लैशेस बैक अगेन, इट बिकम्स करेक्टिव मीनिंग यू आर नॉट लिमिटेड. यू आर ब्रह्मन. तात्पर्य वुड बी यू आर नॉट जीवा. यू आर एटर्नल मीन्स व्हाट? यू आर नॉट non-eternal. Therefore every positive term ends up in negative, because it cannot have, it doesn't have any jati guna kriya sambandha. अनुवाद भी नहीं कर सकते हैं. यहाँ पर तो कम से कम नायम सर्पा यम रज्जु can be अनुवादा, but नायम सर्पा is not अनुवादा, is corrective. In that way it is what? Aptavakyam. It has shabda pramanyam. Even though it is about pratyaksha, therefore aptavakya becomes the drishtantam for shruti pramanam, shabda pramanam. Aptavakya does not mean Brahma Vidya, Brahma Jnana. These doubts will come, in this will come. Mother, Mula Vidya Nirasa will come. In Mula Vidya Nirasa comes, in this it comes. Everywhere, in every book it keeps coming. There is no place where these things don't come. There is no such a thing. If you go on studying, these things will come. There are in Bhasham comes. Saitri in Bhasham Aptavakya comes. Saitri in Bhasham में आता है. दशमा